Hi folks, Bill Dragoo with Dragoo Adventure Tales. I'm about to tell you the rest of the story. I know a lot of you have been following us. Thank you for that. Everybody's wondering what is going on with this Land Cruiser. I wouldn't leave my driveway in that junker. What are you going to have to do to fix it? Well, this is the story of the time machine. The idea was to go back in time to an era where people were traveling across country in some rickety old iron. It might have been the Grapes of Wrath time when they would take an old Model A or a Model T truck or car, and they would have a bag of tools underneath the seat, and there would be a water bag strapped to the radiator just to get them across the desert. They knew they were going to have to fix things. Their spare tire was just a tire, it wasn't a wheel. They had to know how to lever that old one off of there, lever the new one on, and they had to do that a lot. So we've had some of those incidents along the way in our time machine, but something that happened that I didn't really count on was the timelessness of this trip. Rather than a modern time where things are as they are now and are not as they were then, I think that there's a timelessness to the kindness of people. Let's kind of weave that in with what we've got going on with the truck. So come on over here and we'll talk about some of the things that first happened on it. As you know, the truck was dying. And the first time that it died on us on this trip was south of San Luis, Colorado. We were on the side of the highway. It was hot, and a state highway patrol trooper, Colorado trooper, did a U-turn, pulled up behind us, and my first thought was, "Oh no, I'm parked somewhere I shouldn't be." But he got out, and he was just very helpful. What can I do? What's wrong? The truck had shut down, fuel-related issue, and didn't have a lot of a clue as to what it was. We've sorted that out along the way. But he ended up giving us his card and his personal home phone number. He said, "I live about a half hour away. If there's anything that I can do for you, a tow truck, get you to a mechanic shop, you let me know." Well, I knew the truck would start and go again after a few minutes. Historically, that's what it's done. So sent him on his way, but we became Facebook friends. So kindness number one. We made our way. It started up to South Fork, Colorado. At South Fork, we stayed with a friend, Vernon Bryant, and Brian and Jamie were there also, some folks who help us with our Dark Camp, our Christian Adventure Motorcycle project that we do out of South Fork. And I knew that I had an exhaust leak that had developed under the hood here at the exhaust manifold. I was able to get a manifold gasket, and it's not a small job to change an exhaust manifold gasket on a FJ40 Toyota Land Cruiser with the 2F motor. It's a 6-cylinder. There's not a whole lot of junk in the way, but it's just in there, and there are a lot of bolts that have to come off, and it's heavy. So these fellows, through their kindness, took away from the things that they had going on, and they helped me change that manifold gasket to repair that exhaust leak. Hopefully that was going to take care of the problem with the dying. Might have been creating too much heat under the hood, putting heat on the fuel lines and causing them to vaporize, and it doesn't work well with just vaporized fuel. It needs liquid. So, there was a theory that could have been part of what was causing the problem, but as luck would have it, it didn't fix it. So on down the road a ways, we got to Moab, Utah, and Redline Land Cruiser stepped in. Justin, the owner of Redline, along with Rodney and Brian, offered advice. They said, "We'll ship you whatever you need." They ended up sending a Bakelite adapter for my throttle body. So the idea was we would insulate and isolate the heat from the manifold system to the throttle body with this Bakelite adapter here. It's a combination of Bakelite and aluminum. The original adapter that I had was all aluminum, and it was more transferring heat than it was isolating and insulating us from the heat. By the way, that's a gorgeous setup that Redline Land Cruisers has developed to mount the Holly Sniper throttle body system to this 2F motor. It allows you to continue to run the original air cleaner. The fuel lines are fabulous the way that they come up from the right side, wrap around the motor, they tuck in tight, but I've got them wrapped up in this ugly heat reflective tape right now because I was trying to stop what was going on with that. Maybe it would help. I ended up abandoning those lines and installing a pair of lines that I picked up in Elko, Nevada at a repair shop there, and built a system to get the lines completely away from the heat. And of course, it didn't fix it. Well, I'm monitoring my fuel flow with the meter that comes, the readout that comes with the Holley Sniper setup. And I could tell that I was going from a normal 13, 14 to 1 air fuel ratio. It would spike to 35 to 1 whenever the car would die. Still hadn't checked fuel pressure because I'm still thinking I'm boiling fuel. I knew I had ignition, I'd checked that. So I'm boiling fuel. So again, Rodney, while on vacation out away from his place, was communicating with me via text, even by telephone, sending messages back and talking to his people back at Redline Land Cruisers in Colorado Springs. Send Bill the Bakelite adapter. Give him the advice that he needs, and very, very helpful there. So I'm not going to get to the bottom line of it just yet. So on down the road, we ended up out in, still in Moab actually. Our fridge quit. We've got a National Luna fridge. I've had it for probably, I don't know, going on 10, 12 years now. Oh, probably at least 12 years. This is a National Luna Legacy fridge freezer. It's with the 2 compartments in it. You can keep ice cream and you can still keep your drinks cold on the other side of it. It's been a completely perfect system for us until there on the camp in overlooking Porcupine Rim in Moab, Utah, it was quitting working. How are we going to be out for a month with this fridge acting bulky on us like this? I had about 1 bar. I called up Paul May of Equipped Expedition Outfitters. Paul said, Bill, take your control panel out. The control panel is right in here. We'll kind of scroll in on that and let you see where it's tucked in. Got a little room around it there for breathing. But he says, pull your control panel out and take all your connections loose, inspect the board, make sure there are no cracks or anything in it, and then reinstall it. And he explained to me there's a procedure for lifting this control panel out without breaking it or without tearing it up, shorting it out. And by his counsel, I was able to get it out. I did exactly what he said, and it worked. It's worked ever since then. So another kindness, another bit of help, someone taking time out of their day to give us what we need so we can continue on our way. So we got out into Lost Coast, California. This is a 90-mile stretch of road that Highway 1 can't be built on because the mountains fall into the sea. And there are some really great roads out there. It was one of our dreams to hike the part of the Lost Coast Trail, to walk on the beach out there, and to drive it in our rig, in our time machine with the Land Cruiser FJ40 and with our little M416 trailer. So we drove the roads. Before we even started, I had noticed a screeching sound from the left rear. Well, after we finished on the Lost Coast, we were driving up a little farther north, and rough, almost abandoned blacktop road, and the left rear wheel just sagged, came all the way up into the wheel well. I barely got the truck off to the side of the road. I had broken a leaf spring. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? Well, it wasn't long before a fella stopped, and Alan and Miriam stopped with their little scamp trailer, and they helped us to build a mechanism to put underneath the axle to keep this thing lifted. I had already gone up the mountain on the side. There was about a 30-foot embankment. I found a chunk of a cedar fence post that was long since broken off at its base, pulled a couple of staples out, brought that down, and I used a small pruning saw that I have. I cut it up, mortised it, made it fit above my axle underneath the frame, and then Alan had some straps he gave me. I put the straps on there. But one of the coolest things is I had lost my pocket knife. And Alan said, you know, a man can't be on the road without a pocket knife. And he gave me his Gerber pocket knife to help me get down the road. Well, the fix worked. It lasted for about 20 miles as we made our way on up to Futura. But Fortuna, so as we're working our way up there, I'm just thinking this is going to fall apart back here. But that kindness by Alan and Miriam helped me to get everything cinched up to the point that I could get the vehicle on up to Fortuna. Well, what am I going to do? How can I fix this? I called Georgia Sterer with Valley Hybrids down in Stockton, California, late in the day. And George, I've got this problem, man. I know you've got springs and stuff. Have you got anything that'll fit my truck? And how can we get it up here? He says, I'll have to go over to the shop. We're closed right now. But he opened the shop, checked, and he had a set of terrain tamer springs, rear leaf springs, that he could get up to me. Overnight was going to be sketchy. 6-hour drive. There's no way I can drive this truck down there. He said, Bill, I'll have them to you at 8 o'clock in the morning. So he had Pedro and David Perez, one of his employees and his brother, that drove up overnight from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., brought us these springs and installed them. That was, I mean, I started to try to help and I realized these guys are pros. I'm going to stay the heck out of the way. Install the spring. Another extraordinary kindness. It's just unbelievable what happens when you're vulnerable out there on the road. Driving on from there, back Northern California to Alturas, I believe. A friend that I had communicated with on Facebook, a fellow that I had researched, learned a lot about, and even written an article about him, Brian Cox. Susan and I went to stay with him. On the way, I noticed a vibration. We changed the drive shaft angle a little bit by raising that rear end, and I thought maybe I've got a bad universal joint back there. I stopped at a parts store, and Brian and his wife were just about to take off on a day trip out in their boat, but he stayed around and helped me change both universal joints in his driveway before we headed out. Another kindness. It's just incredible what takes place when you're out on the road like this. Well, we made our way on, stopping, starting. It would quit once in a while. We had about 3 or 4 days there where it acted pretty good, I guess, while the temperatures were cooler, is what my theory was. But the truck kept running. Well, we got near Park City, Utah, Grit Moto Adventures there. A friend of ours, Kerry Jeep, has the management of that place. Terry Woodruff is the owner. And I've done training there. My son's done training there. But they've built this into this magnificent resort, basically, with yurts and a big meeting hall and all. So we pulled in there, and I had called back to Redline Land Cruisers, talked to Rodney. Rodney says, Bill, let's try this fuel pump. I'm going to send you one overnight. It beat me to grit. So let's take a look at what we did from there. I was getting suspicious of the fuel pump, so I did finally buy a inexpensive fuel pressure gauge and mounted it under the hood. I would like to have mounted it where it was actually visible to me, but that wasn't an option at the time. And I noticed that whenever this vehicle would quit, it would lose fuel pressure. So why is it losing fuel pressure? Is the fuel boiling in the tank? Is it aerating? Or is it just a bad fuel pump? The pump would run, pressure up, sounded like it was working properly, but clearly something was amiss there. So they sent me the pump. I spent a few hours that next day installing the fuel pump. It's an in-tank pump. It's underneath the passenger seat. And I got the new one in, was very careful, got it all put together correctly, used the proper materials that were going to be in the tank so that they would be not be falling apart with the fuel that they would be immersed in. Put it back together. The pump was quieter than it's ever been. And now we've driven another several days and it has continued to work perfectly. I think we've got it nailed. So the point being that, you know, we're out here on a trip that's going to be a little over 5,000 miles by the time that we're done. The idea to go back in time to kind of experience the road in the way that people did in less reliable vehicles. I'm not knocking a Land Cruiser. It had one issue. It had a bad fuel pump. I was the bigger issue in being very sluggish in getting it diagnosed, or you could call it a lot of red herrings that led me down the wrong pathway. Whatever it was, the kindness of all of these people, both people who were strangers, people that I knew but had never met before, and people that I had met and worked with, and then actual friends, got us on the way and all the way to our destination of Northern California, along the Lost Coast, and now here we are about 15 miles east of Buena Vista, Colorado, in the San Isabel National Forest. This glorious evening, our camp is set up, and I have full confidence in this truck taking me the rest of the way home. So the time machine has done its job. It showed us the timelessness of travel and kindness. Thank you all for watching.